Greetings and welcome to another AI War 2 concepts video. Strategic Sage here. We're going to get into the ships and science conundrum thanks to a question from a viewer a few weeks ago. I'll get to that in a moment. But I was going to do the AI War 2 challenge run that I've been talking about. Already decided what it is, all that stuff. Can't really do that yet because there's some issues with the recent patches. If you're thinking about starting a new game, I recommend holding off for now. And I'll do a patch update video when that all is sorted and get into that run. But for this one, it was prompted by the following question, quote, about AI War 2, quote, I'm enjoying it, but honestly finding it hard to get into. Most of my difficulty is a result of having so many ship types and research upgrades. Therefore, any series of overviews / guides in this format would be appreciated. Well, I'm going to try to answer all that today and a little bit more. But the first thing I've got to say about it is, this is a good, well-intentioned question. And when I say what I'm about to say, I'm not insulting the person who said it, because a lot of new players come with this. I totally understand it. It can be overwhelming for a new player. There's stuff that was overwhelming for me when I first learned it. This question comes from a place of someone who hasn't played the game enough to know sort of what questions to ask. Because after a certain point, you realize it's kind of a question that misses the point. AI War 2 is not the type of game, and there are many of them out there that are, where you have a rigid build order and this is the best way and every other way is not as good. There are little parts of that, but most of it is much more flexible and situation dependent. So it just depends. So for example, classic RTS like StarCraft. There is a specific best way. You need a certain number of SCVs or probes or drones to get resources going at the beginning. And then after a certain point, you're going to shift into getting some basic military up to prevent against a quick rush by another player. And there are certain points when you want to upgrade this and be moving up into this unit. And all of that is very well defined by top players, etc. Most of it, there's debates in small areas, but most of it is just, it's set, there's a best way, and here's what it is. The only reason that's even possible is because it starts from a static situation. You've got the three factions, Zerg, Terran, Protoss. When you're starting as one of those factions, every single game, you're starting with the same tools. You can always upgrade the same things at the same point. It's predictable, it's rigid. It's nothing like AI War in that way. AI War is a cauldron of various ingredients. There's not an infinite number of possibilities, but it's pretty darn close. And because of that, the solutions are equally flexible. And so, if you're looking for that sort of plan, do this and this and this, you've come to the wrong place. I don't think you're going to find it in this game. I think AI War 2 is much the better for it, and I love it, but you just need to realize that's not going to be a possibility here. So just try to keep an open mind. So mostly what I'm going to focus on here is that whole ships and weapon tech, specifically interaction, and then we'll get into the rest of the tech list later because it's not as complicated after that. The ships and weapon techs, by far the biggest chunk to get your head around. And you have to ask yourself, what do you have in the game? Because there's several different starting fleets. That makes a big difference. What type of map type do you have? That's going to make a big difference. What do you have available in GCAs, ARS? What other factions are around? Do you like to play high, low, medium, AI progress? Do you have anything special on like Civil War? What's the AI difficulty? That's going to make a big impact on it as well. The AI type also matters. And I'm just mentioning all those things to point out that there's so much variability. So the most important thing to consider, what ships you're going to get, what weapon techs you're going to invest in, is simply this. A high-level anything is better than a low-level anything else. I can hear people saying that, yeah, but what about no? No, don't go anywhere with it. A high-level anything is better than a low-level anything else. If you have a Mark V something compared to a Mark II something, the Mark V something is better. You get more of them, they're more effective, And they're not any more expensive either because the metal cost is the same. So you're going to lose less of them in combats, contribute less to counterattacks, just on so many levels. They've got more firepower. They can take more damage. It just, there's no real counter argument to that. And what that means is the specific comparison between ship types, even though some are better than others, all other things being equal, all other things are never equal. Ever. So that's a nuance that you worry about after you've played several games and you want to really tweak and fine-tune things. And when you get to that point, you're an advanced player already and you don't need this video. Don't even worry about any of that. Now, I've chosen this game that you're seeing on the screen. This is the Faction Frenzy game that had everything, multiple Civil War AIs, every faction type that was available at the time, which was before the Spire Rises expansion, because it illustrates some important things. Now, I started off with the Cloaked Fleet, which has some ambush ships, so I boosted up an ambush. And then at this point in the game, fairly early on, I look around at some things. And let's take that. So we hadn't really invested in much of anything from this ARS. Okay. But then we have this one up here in Narshi. Well, we got snipers. And over here at Dietz, we had snipers. And Murdoch? Not a whole lot there either. Okay, let's keep moving. Corvus? Snipers. Lyrae? Snipers! And Vanguards. But that was actually the biggest sniper line, is that one right there. So, I'd already invested in ambush. I've got 6 ARS. 4 of them have snipers. And 1 small Vanguard line was the only thing. So, at that point, it was just obvious that I should be going for snipers. And notice, snipers are not one of the best long-range ships. Most people like trippers better. Sentinel gunboats, definitely better. But that's not relevant. I don't have those. You know, it's like wishing for $1 million. Who cares about the $1 million? What's the best thing that you can actually get? Because $1 million isn't happening. So it doesn't matter for the purposes of this whether trippers are better, or sentinel gunboats are better, or snipers are better. Again, there is an answer to that question, but that answer doesn't matter. What matters is snipers are what's available. They're in a tech line I've already invested in. I've got some of the ships in my starting fleet. You know, I got like Raptors and Velociraptors and whatever else. So if I grab those 4 sniper lines, I've got several lines of ambush. I leverage that. Bingo. As far as I'm concerned, in this situation, there is no debating that that's the right choice. And so if we go back and look, I don't care if I like inhibiting Tesla Corvettes, iBots, Agraphic pods. They're actually good. It doesn't matter. Auto bombs, nope. I like pulsar tanks. Too bad. They're fusion. I don't have much of that. It's just totally irrelevant. Vampire claws I like too. Could be the best ship on Earth. It doesn't matter. Me having the upgraded ambush is going to do more for my fleet than any of that stuff. And now we'll look at the GCAs. So we have Tritium and Sniper and Fortified Tesla, Spider and Nucleophilic, Pike and Plasma, Plasma and Spider. Now you may notice a couple commonalities in there. One, I always like the Spiders, and we had a couple of them with those. And then we've got good amounts of Spider and Nucleophilic, so that's something that's worth considering, and I probably didn't seriously enough consider taking this in the game. And then Pike and Plasma, those are both disruptive. You start with Pike turrets, so you can see a pattern here. I definitely should consider upgrading disruptive once or twice. I should get the Pike and Plasma here because they're right next to my homeworld, and I've got, those are all the same type. And then over here, this was a strategic choke point type situation anyway, but there's another Plasma which would benefit from the disruptive, and then I wanted the Spiders. So, again, I'm looking at, the main thing isn't, do I like Nucleophilic better, or Spider better, or Tritium Sniper, or Fortified Teslas? Like, that's not the main consideration. The main consideration is, I can get Plasma and Pike here, which are both disruptive, which I already have, and then more Plasma over here, which I already have. Now, there are going to be times when things are relatively equal, and then you choose between which ones you like. But again, that's rare. That's not going to decide a game unless you're playing on at least difficulty 9. The first bunch of games that you should be playing on more moderate or lower difficulties, it's just not going to be relevant. It's not going to make you win or lose the game. What's going to make you win or lose is whether you've got the synergy, the different things you have working together. Now, tech vaults. Concussion, tech vault. Concussion, tech vault. Okay, so we've got 2 tech vaults nearby. And tech vaults are really important in this decision because of how stuff ranks up. You can see the stuff I haven't invested in, $1,500 for those weapons. $2,750 at the second one. $5,000 for this one, and then the last one is $6,750. So you add them all together, it's $16,000. To upgrade something from 0 to 4 on the tech scale, or from Mark 1 to Mark 5. If you have 1 tech vault in that category, you've lowered that price by over $6,000. It's $9,250 now, and you've cut the price almost in half in terms of the cost to maximize out that weapon category. If I have 2 concussion, I've almost eliminated the cost. I'm going to be paying $4,250 because I would invest in concussion twice and grab the 2 tech vaults. And so the price is like a quarter. So if you've ever got 2 tech vaults in something, and there's any reasonable number of that ship around, go. You're going to jump on that right away. Even if there's 1 of them, it can help, significantly, as mentioned. Once again, just to repeat myself, the issue is what's available. It doesn't matter if I like concussion ships, or even if I like the specific concussion ships that might be available on this map. Once I see 2 tech vaults with concussion, I should be looking and seriously considering concussion ships if I find them. And that should be a significant tipping point in my decision. Then let's look at this fleet down here in Anubis. Now, I wanted that for choke point reasons anyway, again, but okay, it's got fusion bombers, fusion and assault frigates. I wasn't really emphasizing fusion this game. It's a great tech. I just wasn't working on it. Concussion corvettes and V-wings are both concussion. So I know right away for a cheap price, those are Mark 5. Mark 1 now, 2 from the tech vaults, 2 from the 4,000 some investment. And at that point, it's not even a decision. Even if this wasn't a choke point. Even if I had to go out of my way to get it. I mean, I'm taking Anubis unless it's going to put me over some AIP threshold or something that I don't want to hit. The other thing to consider is when you're assembling your fleets, you want to have counters to as many things as possible. You want to try to have counters to big ships, things that are good at attacking structures. Obviously, that's going to be mostly fusion. You want to have ships that are good against swarmers and do good crowd control. They can target multiple weapons at once. Instead of looking for a specific ship, you just want to look at your tooltips in here. You look at the fusion and you see it's good against bypassing shields, good at hitting the hull. You look at the concussion corvettes. What do you see about them? You see they do pretty good range, and low armor targets will get ripped. V-wings. Short range, but they slow down the enemies. They've got a reasonable amount of health for their size. Then you look at their, both those are 0.3 albedo. That could be useful in some situations. Then you see the assault frigates. Again, you've got the fusion attack. It's also got a multi-shot ability with its point defense here. Then you're looking at, the fact that it's a high armor ship, so it'd be vulnerable to things that are good against high armor ships, be vulnerable to things that are good against high energy use, etc. So you read the information, you draw your conclusions from that. Instead of V-wings are good or assault frigates are good or bad or whatever it is that you think. I would say generally having a reasonably flexible fleet that can counter a number of different things is overall going to be better than having a fleet that has a really big weakness in it. Okay, so the other tech categories move down to hull. It has been said, and I think it's generally true, that light's better than medium, which is better than heavy. That's because of the types of ships that are in those categories. I've had games where medium was powerful for me because a lot of disruptive ships are medium. And I had a game that I went heavy into disruptive. Fusion bombers are medium. They're always popular. Heavy, I think it's pretty rare. But again, it depends on what's out there. Don't prejudge it. Look at what's available. They're a late game thing after you've sorted out what weapon types you're going to upgrade. You're going to upgrade the hulls that go fit best with them. And the earlier you start planning that, obviously, the more you're going to be able to fit into whatever hull types. And then also, of course, if you're playing a higher AI progress game, again, you're going to have more research, so you might be able to upgrade a couple hull types instead of just one. Turret hulls. Always want to get those. Generally, I would say one early mid-game, another one late mid-game. But turrets are more efficient combat-wise. So the more you get out of your turrets, the more of a fleet that you can have for offensive operations. You want to have the right amount of turrets, not too many and not too few. Because too many just means the AI saves up wave strength longer before attacking you. Too few, just the standard wave amount's going to wipe you out. So there is a correct amount in terms of the rough value there. Engineering. I think you always want to get at least 2 in engineering, because then you get your engineers up to Mark III and you get the cloaking, which is valuable in a lot of situations, especially using combat factories on enemy planets. But you don't necessarily need to go up all the way. You may or may not want to, depending on your game. High difficulty game, you got to do it right away early. Other games, it can be better to wait and use your science on other things. All depends on how fast you need to get going at first. Really going to depend widely based on the setup. Metal generation, I think it's too expensive. I would never use it. Ever. But some people swear by it because they just want the metal. They want to be able to rebuild more quickly. I think it's much better to just fight well tactically and don't lose ships that you don't have to lose. And I think there's a certain amount of players who like the metal generation, not all of them, but a certain amount of them really just want to be able to get out of situations when they've made a bad decision. And my thinking is, don't make the bad decision in the first place. I mean, if you're sitting close to starving on metal, it's not the time to go mount a major attack. It's not the time to go capture a golem. It's the time to do small things and build up your metal. And those are the kind of, everything's got to be integrated together in your strategy. Command stations. This, again, very dependent on the game you're playing. If you're going low AI progress, you don't even want to think about upgrading anything but logistical. And not even then, probably, if you can find good, zenith power generators, zenith matter converters to bolster your energy. You might want to upgrade it once. If you're doing a higher AI progress game, which would mean, like, for example, let's just say that I were to capture all 3 of these systems, for example, and capture this one and capture Dietz. So then Dietz and Heinel would be behind my lines. You get economic ones, and you might expand out further. I might take, more along this way, and Altera would. And once you get a certain number of economic stations, that's the best way to get more energy, is to invest in that. If you're playing a high choke point game, like you're using a snake galaxy or a concentric galaxy or the bubbles or, things like that, and especially if you're playing in a game with Spire, then you want the military command station. Upgrading those is huge. If you're not in a game where you're going to have a lot of choke points and also enough energy to supply military command stations, then it's a complete waste of time to upgrade. Another thing that a lot of players really swear by and that I typically don't do is upgrading your planet command station on the screen here. There we are. I did it once in this game. That upgrades everything on the system, but not anything anywhere else. A lot of people do it just to get more metal and stuff at the beginning of the game. Again, I think investing in metal with your science is wasteful. I think this is the kind of thing that's best saved. Again, keep your options open. Wait till later in the game. See where your key choke points are, and then decide, maybe I want to invest an extra level there. Maybe I want this one to be a little bit stronger. It's getting attacked. This system is going to defend a key capturable, or my homeworld's going to be exposed the whole game. I need to bolster my defenses there, and I don't have enough, which is going to be rare because your home command station gets more turrets. But that's really a touchy, rare type of situation that I think it's wise to do that. Force fields. A lot of people say get one right away. Gives you another force field, makes the ones you have a little bit stronger. I tend to maybe do one force field upgrade later in the game. And this is one particular that I would say, higher AI progress games, you definitely want more force fields. Lower AI progress, don't do it all or get one. And, it is a reasonably expensive one. Citadels. This is another one of those that's extremely map and faction dependent. If you have a map with a lot of choke points, if you're playing a Spire game, if you're playing against Nanocost, you got to fight them with those kinds of things. Yeah, these can very well be worth it. If you've got a game without a lot of choke points, realistic or crosshatch maps, or you don't have those factions, it's a total waste, most likely. Minefields. Unless you start out with the mine layer defenses or got a bunch of mines from GCAs, and sometimes even then, usually no. But in this particular game, I did do the mine layer defenses. I upgraded this one. I think I upgraded again later because I've got so many mines, as you can see there. So that was absolutely worth it. Not so much otherwise. And then sentries. Again, variable. I would suggest getting one, maybe two in these. Normally, you might want to go higher if you're going up against Scourge, for example, who have a lot of ships with like 8,000 cloaking points. If you're going up against like a Royal AI or whatever, is going to have a lot of Guardians, some of the dire stealths and everything, they're going to be cloaked. What are you facing? If the enemy is hitting you with a lot of cloaked ships, yeah, sure. Dial up your sentries. And the gravity generators really help as well. But it's really just one of those things, do you really need it? Other things that can impact this strategy, again, is simply, for example, whether or not you should go in and hack a GCA or a particular ARS or whatever. How much hacking you're going to have is going to vary. Do you want to hit the super terminal? Do you have a Dyson sphere and you want to invest a ton into that and have that dominate the galaxy? Do you have Dark Spire and you want to destroy a bunch of their generators? Do you want to hack a bunch of macrophage Telia if they're around? How much do you want to invest in Outguard? You really should invest in Outguard every chance you get. So, and that's just to cycle back to the idea that there is no right answer. In the general view, there is often a right answer for a specific situation, usually. But the next game is going to give you a completely different situation. Later on that game, going to give you a much different situation. And one other thing I just want to put out there, I've offered this before and nothing's come back, but I'm always willing. If you have a save game where you just don't know what to do, you're getting an analysis paralysis, or maybe you got a few of them, because you reach a certain point and you're not sure. You can't find a criteria to make a decision. Send me the save games. I'll try to remember to put my email down in the comments below, and if I forget, yell at me, and then I'll do it and, interact with you. And I'd be happy to do videos of people's games that they're struggling with and how I would personally handle the situation and what I think the best options are and other things you might consider in that environment. But that's about as close as I can, I think, to giving help on this kind of thing. So I know this has been a little bit long-winded, but it's really been highly requested, and I wanted to get the emphasis on the approach that I think is best for the game. Feel free to throw any feedback you've got on that. What holes are there? What didn't I cover? All of that. And we'll be back with more AI War 2 soon. Thanks for watching, everybody.